I think it's fair to say that we need to have a talk about the GPT-5 launch. It didn't quite go how I expected, and if you've seen the comment section on my recent videos, you'll see just how much people did not get what they thought they were getting with this model. There's a lot of layers to this, and many of them are actually, to some extent, my fault. I want to take the time to go through all of the details with you guys, from what my experience was like working with OpenAI, to how I was compensated, to how things have changed since launch, to how my own expectations were not met, to, most importantly, how the experience I'm having now using GPT-5 is significantly worse than the experience I had when I was testing it before. There's a ton to dive into here, and I'm supposed to be bouncing back from my vacation right now, but I wanted to take the time to explain this because I see a lot of confusion, frustration, and misinformation being spread, and I don't want to be part of that to the best of my ability. So first and foremost, I want to make sure it is very, very clear that the experience that you probably are having with ChatGPT and GPT-5 right now is not the experience that I had when I was first testing it. We'll go into the details of all of that in a bit, but there's a couple other things I want to jump on first. I see a lot of people accusing me of being a paid shill of OpenAI. And this is so hilariously not true that I'm almost frustrated that it's happening, but I do understand why I'm getting this type of pushback. I said the thing was really good. It was for me. It blew my mind. And I tried recording my actual genuine reaction to seeing how powerful it was because I wanted you guys to see that, not some marketing bullshit. I was not paid a cent by OpenAI. In fact, I'm currently about $25,000 down with inference with them with T3 chat over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So no, they didn't pay me. I'm actually losing a lot of money. They did offer me a $1,000 appearance fee for the video I was in, but I think we need to better understand that video that I was in. To be as fully transparent as possible, I'm just going to give you guys the order of events on how I got involved with that launch. I had some friends that had early access to GPT-5. It wasn't something that was super restricted. You'd be surprised how many people and companies in particular had early access. I wanted early access because, of course I do. Who doesn't want to try out the new thing early? So I hit up some of my contacts at OpenAI, and since I wasn't hitting them up as a company, I was hitting them up as an individual, they couldn't get me the early company access that others were getting. But they did realize they had this launch video that they were planning coming up, and then I could sneak into that. They asked if I'd be down. I thought about it. I actually weighed the fact that people would be concerned about the bias that's inherent to me doing something like that. But when I learned my friend Simon Willison was going to be part of it, I realized, I guess this probably isn't too big of a deal then, and decided to do it. And I thought it was awesome. I was excited to be there as a more rational, not super AI-pilled developer that just had their own organic thoughts about the stuff. I went out of my way the night before to make a whole bunch of benchmarks and things I could use to test it out with. None of my use of it in the video was using the website because I found it to not be very good there. But over the API, it was incredible. And in Cursor, it was even more incredible. But none of that means I'm without fault here. One of the biggest mistakes I made by far was putting that video out when I wasn't even around to pay attention to the community sentiment. I was at DEF CON on that Thursday when GPT-5 dropped. And I did a quick scan of Twitter to see how people were feeling. I got approval for my video, which isn't even something they looked at. OpenAI did not see my video before I posted it. I'll put on the screen the screenshot of the full approval process that I went through so you can understand they did not have their hands in on anything beyond giving me early access to the model and giving us feedback as we were running into issues and seeing random stuff happen. But I did publish that video before seeing any of the public reception, and then I record and publish a second one with only a slight taste of the public reception. And the public reception did not line up with the experience I was having. I have a bunch of theories as to why that happened, and we'll dive into it a bunch as we go along here. But the biggest piece by far is just that the models people were using weren't as good as the ones I was using. That doesn't mean that the models I was using aren't available. I do think that the same model is available through hitting the GPT-5 high reasoning API endpoints. But that's not the experience people have when they go to chatgpt.com and try out the model for the first time, or when they check the box for GPT-5 in Cursor or whatever other tools they're using. So when I went even further and made what now is very obviously a somewhat irresponsible tweet saying that all of these other tools were no longer relevant, if your experience didn't line up with what I had said there, it feels like I'm just being paid out. And I can see why people think that. Clearly, those people don't know much of my history and how hard I work to be transparent about every single person who's ever paid me a fucking dollar. But if you had the bad experience so many had on chatgpt.com and then went to Twitter to complain about it and saw my post, I can see why you would be hesitant to trust me. As I mentioned before, I was on vacation when most of this was happening. I was in Vegas for DEF CON, competing in contests there, not paying much attention to online, and every time I did, I just saw a bunch of people flaming me for liking the model. From the little bit I'd been playing with it over these days, which was admittedly on tiny code bases I was using to solve random puzzles at DEF CON, it seemed slightly worse, but not a lot worse, and I didn't really care to think more about it at the time. I was busy working on the puzzles and trying to enjoy my vacation. But today I took the day off and tried coding more. And it's not as good as it was when I tried it before. I tweeted exactly this here. The experience I was having using GPT-5, even the high fast version in Cursor, is not as good as the Nectarine 725 build that I was using when I was playing with it before. I don't think it's necessarily the model, but the experience with it is absolutely worse. I've been talking to both Cursor and OpenAI, who collabed a bunch ahead of time to make this all work. I have a lot of funny stories there too. But it seems like their attempts to try and improve GPT-5 in Cursor are hurting at the moment at the very least. And as I mentioned before, from Wednesday of last week, the day before GPT-5 launched, till now on Wednesday the week after, I haven't been coding much. I was trying to take a break. So if the experience was worse for that window, I wouldn't have known. That said, it seems like a lot of the degradation that I'm noting here wasn't the case on launch day. I've actually been surprised by how many people have been saying that they had the same quality experience that I was talking about when they were using GPT-5 the first day or two and have seen it degrade since. It was one-shotting things incredibly on launch day, and then the next day, it seems to have gotten worse than Claude Code. It became so bad and slow, huge difference between day one and now. Something changed in Cursor yesterday. I went through my chat history and ran the same prompt, and it's not a little different. It went from a 10 out of 10 to maybe a 5. And honestly, this has been my experience too. I went and regenerated my AI Image Studio build over and over. This is the one that I built when I was at the office. This is the exact code. I have the exact prompt that I did in Cursor, and I've been reusing this prompt against different builds of different things. I tried using it in VS Code with Copilot, and it's an ugly sin. You can see you can even see rendering glitches in the way they did the gradient here that are really bad. This just isn't even close to the same quality. And again, exact same prompt. I'm far too lazy to open up all the different builds that I did. So I'm just going to show screenshots. Here's one that was also done using Copilot. And you can see it didn't even put the gradient correctly on this box. It breaks out on the left here. It's bad. It looks glitchy and it was incorrectly generated. Here's another one that was generated in Cursor, and it's not as bad, but it's still just nowhere near as good as before. I even saw it during the reasoning step say that it should use a gradient, and it just didn't. I got this instead. This all started from this, by the way. This was the original that I had handed to the different models in different versions of the model and said, hey, make this look better, basically. Overhaul the create and edit flows and make a better looking, better user experience for this. And for whatever reason, it's only gotten worse from when I was first testing it. Even worse than like Horizon. You guys saw the generations I did then. They were incredible. So I have no idea what's going on here, especially when you consider the fact that the Horizon models had reasoning off. Man, some of these generations were bad. It just started throwing gradients in random places that overlap and don't look like the model I was using before and the experience I was having before would never have generated slop like this. It was so much better. It was actually kind of jarring. That's why I made the video I made. I was trying to show you guys my organic reaction. Because I was unhappy with my experience using GPT-5 today, I took some of the same tasks and threw them at Claude. This is what I got with Opus 4. It's so bad. You can't even see the edit text because it screwed up the contrast. It's just trash. I told it to get rid of the top nav and it didn't. It made it bigger and glowy. The text overflows out of the drop-down box that I told it to add. And when you click things, it moves like... I can't take you seriously if you're saying that Opus is as good, if not better, than GPT-5. But at the same time, when the GPT-5 experience is as bad as it is right now in a lot of these tools, I understand why you feel like I overreached. I promise you guys, the experience I was having is so much better than this that my video made sense. And I hope that you can all see that soon. Because a couple of y'all have. I have been surprised by the number of people who have, through various different ways and tools and reasons, been able to see what I've seen. I'm sad that most of you guys can't. And that is largely to blame on OpenAI. They've screwed up a lot of things here. None of this is the biggest mistake I made, though. The biggest one by far is this particular video. Not that the video is a mistake. I do genuinely believe Anthropic has weird vibes. I've had so many bad and questionable interactions with them, many of which I forgot to even include in the video. I came up with the concept for this video in February when I was first trying to work with them on T3 Chat and was just disgusted with their business practices. I stand by every word I said in this video, but I do not stand by when I published it. The published time wasn't me trying to defend OpenAI or anything. It's just the nature of my content schedule. I was on vacation. I had a bunch of videos I had filmed a few weeks before, and we were just posting them the way we normally do. This one was scheduled, so we posted it. Since I hadn't told my team about the GPT-5 launch, it wasn't scheduled in any specific way. It just was the video supposed to be out that time. But then GPT-5 hit, and then this was the thing scheduled next, and I can see why that would look bad. There was a video between, but it's still close enough that people had a bad vibe from that. And I get it, but at the same time, this video is one I've had planned for a long time. I added this to my tracker in Notion for video ideas on June 10th, over 2 months ago. I've been thinking about it since February. This isn't a random thing I just decided to do because OpenAI paid me, but the timing was bad, and I will take ownership for that fact. That said, I stand by every single fucking word I said in that video. Anthropic does have weird vibes, and from my experience, those vibes are much weirder than OpenAI. Even trying to get your rate limits bumped is like pulling teeth. Not a pleasant company to work with from my experience, especially in comparison to the other companies we're talking about. That said, I'm far from the only person that has been getting pushback like this and also is changing their tune now that they're having more experience. I said in my original video that GPT-5 was not a good model for talking to, and I still kind of stand behind that. The GPT-5 chat model, it's not really a model, it's a different set of params that you can hit over the API, is better than the version I was using was, but it still wasn't great at talking prose and just being fun to interact with. Clairvaux was one of the 5 people that was in that video with me, and she said the same thing when we were talking there, and I think one of the clips even made it into the video. It's a really robotic model that does what you tell it to. That's the magic that we experienced, but it wasn't as nice to talk to. So when she ended up putting it in her product, she was unimpressed. And when she polled her users, the response is that it felt slower, yappier, and overall was less beloved. So they ended up moving back to GPT 4.1 for their product because their product's much more about copy, presentations, and having conversational output. I can't say for certain whether or not Claire was paid. All I know is what I was offered, the $1,000, and that I declined it. But we both have just as much incentive to be nice to OpenAI here and to glaze it or whatever. We're not. I honestly can't believe anyone watched my previous videos and thought, wow, OpenAI paid for this, because there's so many things I said in them that are obviously things OpenAI would not have wanted me to say. Even now, when I posted complaining about the fact that these models are not performing how they did when I tested them, like outright just saying the model's not as good as it was before, one of the most damning things I could say about OpenAI, immediate response is, do I ever get tired of shilling OpenAI? Like, what the fuck can I do? I don't know. It just kind of sucks that I tried something different here. I tried to just give my organic, authentic reaction before I knew any of the details. I didn't know how much it cost. I didn't know if the mini models were happening. I didn't know how the thinking and reasoning params would work. And I certainly didn't know the version on ChatGPT.com would suck so hard that it was easy to recommend T3 Chat instead so you could actually experience the model. I did not know any of that shit. And if I really wanted to cash out in that video, I could have done things very differently. I could have plugged T3 Chat hard. I could have loaded up with sponsors. Instead, I took a loss. That video cost me probably a few $1,000s. So you can call me a paid shill all you want, and I understand where that comes from. It comes from the mistakes of how I chose my order of publication here and that I wasn't around to play with it more on launch day and have a different reaction then. It came from the fact that I was sharing my experience the way I had it, and I published it before seeing how the rest of the world reacted. And if I've learned any lesson here, it's that I shouldn't be so authentic. It genuinely feels as though I am regularly punished for being authentic and organic with the way I feel about things. Every time I just say how I feel, I get way more shit than if I watch what everyone else says, and just smile along with them. Do you understand how much clout I would have gotten if I was the one guy who came out and said, yeah, the model sucks? If day one, I was like, yeah, I had early access, it sucks. I would have gained so much more than I gained for the things that I said. But what I said is what I believed. And I still think the good model's in there. Like, I do genuinely believe that. I've hit it over the API enough times. I've used it in T3 Chat enough times. I've seen it work incredibly well in Cursor. I know it can be incredible. I have no idea what the fuck's going wrong and why this rollout has been as botched as it has been. And it's entirely unacceptable how they've changed ChatGPT.com, by the way. To be fair, I do love dunking on the ChatGPT site. That's a big part of why T3 Chat exists. But the experience you have with this model there is just not good. And I knew something was up when I got more and more feedback from our users that T3 Chat was a way better experience with the new models than ChatGPT's website was. That was a huge, oh shit, something's up moment for me. And that's when I decided to start looking into it more actively. And now that I actually have the time to sit down and play with it more, it does feel different. It does feel worse. It doesn't feel like the thing that I was talking about in my first video. And if that's why you're mad at me, I understand it. I'm sorry. I was reporting on what I had. And what I had was incredible. I stand behind that. It really blew me away what it was capable of. And even over the last few days, as I've been taking prompts and seeing if GPT-5 could solve them, sometimes it could and sometimes it couldn't. I would take the ones that couldn't, hand them at Opus, and watch it flail around and make dumber, bigger mistakes immediately, and also cost me significantly more tokens in the process. I could not get Opus to answer a single question that GPT-5 failed on. I'm sure there are plenty of cases where that is not true, but from my lived experience using all of these things, I have yet to find a single fucking time where GPT-5 could not answer a thing and Opus could. But I have found plenty of the opposite. I just don't really like the Opus models, to be frank. It's rare I find them better enough at things that I can justify using it over just using Sonnet. Sonnet's still a great model. It's just expensive for what it is now. But I've been doing testing today across GPT-5 High versus Sonnet versus Opus. I'm just not happy with the quality of the tools in general. It feels like they all kind of suck at the moment. I don't know if this is Cursor pushing some bad update on the Insiders channel that's breaking things. I don't know if there's some other crazy hidden thing I'm not thinking of here. I don't know if the model got dumbed down. I don't know what's up. I can't know what's up. I'm not an insider. All I know is that from the conversations I've had with OpenAI and Cursor, they are both actively working to try and make this better. But the experience you're having now is not the one I had. And for that, I'm sorry. I wish I had planned better. I wish I was around to test this more thoroughly. I wish I had a backup plan for when the model and experience you guys had was different from the one that I had early access to and that I published. I made that video because I wanted to share the absurd experience that I was having and that everyone else I knew who was using the model was seeing as well. We need to talk about what OpenAI screwed up here because there's a handful of things. I'd say the biggest thing by far is AutoRouter. If you're not already familiar, I talked about this in my second video. When I was using the model, I had access to GPT-5 reasoning under various different names, one of which was Nectarine, was the model I was using most of the time. Very last minute, we also got 5 Mini and Nano in different names as well, and I did not test them. I barely had time to. I ran them through a benchmark once or twice. I've been really surprised by 5 Mini, by the way. That might be its own video eventually. That's a really good model for the price. But the thing we didn't really do was the AutoRouter. For me, I just didn't use the ChatGPT site, so I never really would have hit it. But the thing the AutoRouter does is it takes the request, looks at it, and determines where to send it based on the contents of that request. So if you tell it, think deeply, or give it a hard math problem, it will turn on reasoning and increase or decrease the amount of reasoning that's necessary accordingly. Which means that by default, for most users, they're getting the dumbest version of GPT-5 when they make a request, especially on the free tier, especially because OpenAI was very generous with the amount of free tier usage on this model. The AutoRouter was meant both to maximize the quality of experience relative to the cost and speed, because when you are reasoning for a while, you just don't see anything for a bit. And since the average user of ChatGPT has been using 4.0 almost exclusively, I think it was like 30% of users have ever used one of the reasoning models for the paid users on OpenAI's services. That's crazy. Like, think about that. Less than 30% of users who pay $20 a month for ChatGPT use any of the smarter models. They just keep using 4.0. So because of that, they're used to getting a response immediately. So if 4.0 is replaced with a reasoning model, they don't get that anymore. So they did two things. The first is they made the model reason or not reason based on the prompt and the complexity of what you ask. The other thing they did is the new quick answer button where you click and it just spits out an answer immediately by turning off reasoning. Those are hacks. And those hacks seem to be not well received at the moment. And people are not seeing what we're seeing with the model. And also, the probably bigger deal, hiding all the other models. I didn't think they were going to do this. I had no idea at launch time that they were going to go deprecate every other model, hiding them from the UI, disabling them entirely for free users, and also, at the time, for plus users. I could not have fathomed that. I genuinely did not believe that would be the case. I can sympathize with them a little bit for doing this because I think I know why they did. It's because 4.0 is a shit model. It's expensive to run because it's way bigger than it needs to be. The quality of the output isn't great for various different reasons. It also has a bad habit of fueling people into these ChatGPT-induced psychosis moments because it's sycophantic, is putting it lightly. It's not a great model to have the general world using. And I see why OpenAI wanted to rush to move away from that and try to simplify the increasing complexity of the naming scheme, the model options, and whatnot. They wanted the models to just figure it all out for you, to get you to the right place just by asking a question. And they failed. To be frank, they did not succeed at this at all. The experience people are having is not good. And as a result, we've had a crazy surge in signups on T3 chat. I never would have predicted that. I never thought OpenAI would just hand us an opportunity like this. They did. I'm not going to complain. But I could not have predicted this is how it would have went. They shouldn't have hit all the other models. I think they've walked it back since. Sam's been posting a lot about his regrets and the mistakes here. And the auto router is just a disaster in general. Another thing they screwed up for sure is clarity on the different versions of GPT-5. They're not even really different versions. They're different parameters when you're querying the model. There's various levels of juice that you can give the model, which is the amount of thinking it's allowed to do, that cause it to behave entirely differently. And then there's the fast version where your traffic is prioritized, which wasn't a thing when I was testing because we were all in the fast version because there was just a handful of us using it. So yeah, that was definitely a flub on their part, to put it lightly. I still don't know what the difference is between the versions and if high fast is the one that I was using before. It's not clear enough at all. I know what mini and nano are, but I don't really understand the different characteristics of 5 based on these different things. All I know is that the one endpoint I had access to when I was playing with it before was really, really good. And the versions that I'm using right now don't feel quite as good. At the very least, they don't feel as good in Cursor. Some amount of that is Cursor, some amount of that's probably OpenAI. Possible to know right now, but it would have been nice if they had solved the fourth problem. Would have made this a lot easier. They don't have a good code tool. If a new Claude model was to come out and for some reason Cursor didn't support it, I can still test how good that model is with code by using Claude Code. There's no way Anthropic would release a new version of a Claude model without support in Claude Code at this point in time. OpenAI did this too with Codex. The difference being, Codex just isn't that good. First, you have to ask which version of Codex, because there's like 5 of them now. The 2 that matter are the background agent competitor for Devon, where you hit it up in like Slack and it goes and spins up a VM and writes the code for you. I don't give a shit about that one. I'm talking about the Codex CLI, the alternative to Claude Code. That's open source GPL license. It's a cool project. I'm really proud of the guys making it. I'm friends with a handful of them. But it's nowhere near as good as Claude Code or even other open source options like OpenCode or Aider. And all of these tools need some implementation changes to make the most of GPT-5. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard from various companies building things like vibe coding apps or CLI tools and the hacks that they've had to put in to keep Anthropic models from doing weird shit. For example, in Chef by Convex, their vibe coding app to build something with Convex, a lot of the things they did to make it stable were locking write access to various files. They let the model write to the file and then just immediately revert the writes that it does because it's not going to do a good job and it's going to insist on touching things it shouldn't, even if you put in the system prompt that it shouldn't touch it. This is where things change with GPT-5. It follows instructions and it follows them incredibly well. This was not made anywhere near clear enough by OpenAI when they put out the new models. The fact that they had to work so closely with Cursor ahead of time to make the two play together nicely is information that probably should have been shared. When a new model comes out, it's not as simple as just swapping the string out, especially with a change like GPT-5, where it behaves fundamentally differently. The fact that it doesn't go off on weird tangents and down weird rabbit holes the way almost every other model ever does means you have to prompt differently. It means you have to design your system differently. It means you have to use your tools differently. It means a lot of different things, none of which were really done up front ahead of time. Because to be frank, this is the first model OpenAI has done that has been worth integrating in these tools. Up until this point, Anthropic models have been the best choice by far for any agentic work because they're the best at tool calls. Not only has GPT-5 closed that gap, it actually is a lot better in various ways and significantly cheaper. The problem is that people don't think of it that way. When Claude 4 Sonnet comes out, they go change the string inside of their tool and suddenly it gets better. If you change that same string from Anthropic / Claude 4 Sonnet to OpenAI / GPT-5, you're not going to have a better experience immediately because you've built things into that tool to steer Sonnet models in the right direction. You've probably already seen this if you use Cursor. The way that Cursor behaves with Sonnet models versus the way it behaves with GPT-5, it's entirely different. It's clear they built a whole new everything internally in order to make GPT-5 behave well. At the same time, the Cursor employees have all been saying GPT-5 is their favorite model to use in the editor right now. So obviously something's going wrong here. If they were saying that and they still say that and the experience has regressed, they're on it. And I literally see my phone lighting up right now with a Cursor employee who's working on solving this problem. I think that's everything I had on my list. I just wanted to give you guys my honest take of what went wrong here. I think OpenAI botched the launch. I think the things they did on the ChatGPT site are deplorable and have people very, very concerned for reasons that make total sense. I think the experience that we're having in Cursor right now is nowhere near as good as the one I was having before. It's possible that from like Thursday to Sunday, it was close to what I had, but I wouldn't know. I was on vacation. I think the accusations of paid shilling are absurd. The people who said these positive things had positive experiences. OpenAI is not going to try and kill their credibility, and I'm certainly not going to come out here and do the same either. I don't think you guys understand how much free clout I would have gotten if I had come out and said the model sucks. But it doesn't. At least it didn't. And it's kind of silly that I picked the path where I was the most honest, and I got more shit than I've gotten since before I broke up with Vercel, to be frank. This one just kind of sucks because on one hand, I'm disappointed and frustrated that I'm getting shit that I don't think I deserve. But on the other hand, I can totally understand where it came from because if you watched that video, got hyped, went and tried it, and had a different experience than I did, I understand why you'd be frustrated. And before I see all the top comments that are OpenAI gave us a different model intentionally just so they could give something cheaper to the masses, there's no fucking way. There's absolutely no way that is the case. I have been talking to enough people to say for sure that there is confusion on all sides about what the fuck is going on, that the auto router in particular was a terrible idea and is not in a state that is good enough for it to be like a recommended path, that most of the people I was talking to were using the API, and I was as well, and all of our experiences were really good. And a lot of those experiences can still be seen if you use the API in other tools. I hope this attempt at being transparent goes better than the last one, because if not, I think I actually do have to be a grifter, because it's not worth the financial hit and the emotional hit that I and my team take when I give an organic piece of content about a thing that I felt, and the response is, you're a paid shell. I'm literally leaving millions of dollars on the table by being honest right now, and it just kind of fucking sucks that I'm punished for it. I understand why people are upset. I just wish they would use their brains a bit more when they were. Yeah, I don't think I got anything else on this. I hope you guys will let me be honest, because it sucks that I'm feeling pressure on all sides to not be. I'm refusing opportunities from these companies so I can stay honest with you guys, and I'm doing my best to ignore all of the hate so I can stay honest with you guys. This is yet again one of the most honest videos I've ever made, and if this doesn't go well, I'm going to have to rethink a lot of things, because I didn't put a sponsor on this. I'm probably editing it myself, losing a ton of time I could be spending on my business. I'm supposed to be on my vacation still right now. And instead, I'm sitting here defending my integrity in my bedroom, trying to explain that OpenAI screwed up. I don't know. This just fucking sucks, if I'm being frank. And I hope you guys see that I'm not trying to mislead anyone. I'm trying to share my experiences with you guys as organically as I can. And right now, you can't pay me to do otherwise. But if I'm going to keep getting punished as though I was paid for it, might be time to get fucking paid for it. Because right now, if I don't say this is the sponsored section, then there isn't a sponsored section. You cannot pay me to say things I do not believe. Even my sponsors are companies that I actually believe in and think would be a good fit for a majority of the people who watch my content. I'm doing things differently here. I'm putting a lot of effort in so that I can be as honest as possible. And if my honesty doesn't line up with your experience, just say that. Say that you're confused that I feel this way when you tried it and had a different experience, because then we can have a conversation. But when our experiences differ and your conclusion is that I must be a paid shill, then you're not interested in a conversation. You just want to be angry. And I get why people want to be angry right now. The gap between how people talked about this model and how you might have experienced it was great enough that I can see why it pissed you off. but try to use your brain enough to not let the anger guide you. Try to accept the fact that a video I filmed weeks before all of this and planned months before all of this isn't about GPT-5, certainly not about OpenAI fucking paying me anything. Realize the fact that I would never choose to stake my credibility for a quick payout. Realize that there's no future in which OpenAI acquires me, because then I lose a whole giant source of my income in my business, which is my YouTube channel where I neutrally talk about all these different things. There's no world in which it would make sense for me to sell my opinion to OpenAI, except for the one where I'm accused for it anyways. So here you go. I think OpenAI fucked up bad. There's no way I would be putting this video out if I was on their fucking payroll. And if you still think after all this, after I called the model autistic in my first fucking video, that I'm somehow dishonest and a paid shill, I don't know what to say other than go fuck yourself. You're the problem here. You're going to push me to do that because I'm trying my fucking hardest here. I really am. Was I somehow biased because OpenAI treats me better than the other labs? Yeah. Maybe the other labs should treat me better. Like, seriously, though, yes, I'm biased because I like the company, because they've treated me well, been transparent with me, and made things I think are good. What the fuck do you expect me to do? I don't know. You have my thoughts now. Do what you want with them. I'm not excited at all to look at the comments on this fucking video. I might even just turn them off at this point. I'm doing my best to not get burnt out right now, if I'm being frank. So, yeah. Take it as you will. Wait for the model to get better. Keep paying too much for Anthropic models until then, I guess. This all just kind of sucks. And I hope you can at least see a bit more of where I'm coming from now. Bye.